Welcome to part one in a series of screencasts from LSE Life on discovering different ways to make shorter, smarter revision notes. In part one, we're going to focus on mind maps. So this is what the session will cover today. We're going to look at why you need to make revision notes. Then we're going to look at the importance of summarising, consolidating and synthesising the information that you have. Then we're going to go into mind maps in a little bit of detail and look at what they are and how they help. And then we're going to follow a short guide on how to create a simple mind map for your revision. So, there are many definitions of revision, but for the exam context, it's important to think of revision as the process of changing or reworking something in order to improve it. And that's very important because we should be thinking about our revision notes as the chance to improve and rework our previous notes into something that will be much more useful to turn to when we're facing exams. Ideally, revision should be an active process. So passive revision is a revision where we're just rereading, highlighting, perhaps taking even more and more detailed notes, just reading more and more texts, and we might feel good and we might feel that we're doing something, but we're being very passive in our actions. Ideally, revision should be a more active process where we consolidate all of the information that we have, we work on summarising that information, and we work on building connections and synthesising that information in order to actively understand your course. So let's look at active revision in a bit more detail. So for step one, we're thinking about consolidating. That means bringing together all of your notes on a topic or a theme or an idea from the various places that you have them, on your laptop, on your tablet, maybe in some notepads. You should include your notes from your lectures, your seminars, any revision notes that you've taken so far, any notes that you've made from journal articles, books, other readings. None of this, though, is really effective if you've not taken the time to have a look at some past papers and course outlines so that you can see in more detail what it is that your tutor is trying to show you about the course, what they hope that you understand from studying that course. So we will give links to these two sessions in part 4, but you can already find them on the LSE Life Moodle page in the Ace Your Online Exams section. Step 2 of revision is summarising. So filtering through the information, evaluating what is most useful, looking for key arguments, key theories, key authors, key events, and beginning to think about what your own argument or your own position is in relation to these things. And step 3 is about synthesising that information. So this is a really important step because this is where we start to look for underlying themes. We think about how points are interrelated. We look for arguments for and against a point. We also critically evaluate these arguments, which is really crucial because that helps us to develop our own arguments. And another thing that we can do, if you're able to, if you are still in contact with people from your course, you might want to discuss this with others because that's a great way to think about our own arguments and help them to evolve. So let's look at mind maps in a little bit more detail. What is a mind map? Well, you might have heard them also referred to as concept maps or pattern notes. It really doesn't matter. And it's around a central idea or theme or topic, and that's surrounded by branches or lines that lead to the sub-ideas of that topic. And then these sub-ideas are explored a little bit more further with further lines and branches. Mind maps, concept maps, pattern notes, they can be very colourful. You can incorporate lots of images if that helps and you find that enjoyable. But it's an important thing that you don't spend hours and hours making this look beautiful. Again, that would lead you into a slightly more passive type of revision eventually, where you're focusing on just getting the information together and looking nice rather than actually understanding that information. We recommend that you try mind maps when you're revising because ideally you need a more organised and ideally more visual way of bringing together that complex series of notes. You could have a significant pile of notes from the various places that you have them for one particular theme or topic. So this is a useful way of bringing them together. And mind maps are great because now there's lots of free apps and things that you can use where you can create them on a laptop or a tablet, but you can also easily create them on paper. The most important rule is, as much as possible, keep it relatively simple and try to keep it to one page or screen. Again, you slightly lose the point of a mind map if it becomes enormous. So keeping it narrow, if you were working on paper, then I'd say, for example, it shouldn't be bigger than an A3 piece of paper. So now we're going to look in a little bit more detail about how to actually mind map. Mind maps were originated by Tony Buzan, and there is a book, his mind map book, which you can borrow from the library, though obviously the library is closed at the moment. But it's available online from Amazon and lots of other online retailers. So the following information is just one way that you could do it. As you can see at the bottom here, for this example, we have used the free app, Simple Mind. There are many free apps out there. Play around, find one that you like, but if you've never got started before, have a go with Simple Mind because it's quite easy to use. So for the mind map, you start with your central topic or theme in the middle of the page, and then you pick out what are your key points. As you can see in this example, I've kept this to 5 key points. This is because generally I've found if you go more than 5, significantly more than 5, it becomes too dense and there's too much information on one page. So try to use the rule of 5 as you're creating these mind maps. For each of the 5 key points that you've chosen, then you might have further subpoints to discuss. But remember, try to keep that concise. 1 to 5 subpoints for each key point is probably best. You can start with a short summary of what that subpoint is. Then you can make a note of who are the key theorists, what are the key ideas for the subpoint. If you wanted to, you can incorporate some colour or drawings if that works for you. As much as possible though, keep that subpoint concise. So use short sentences and abbreviations or your own shorthand that makes sense for you. And you can also start to draw connections to other subpoints as you begin to fill those in. So that's it. It's not too complicated at all. Why not try creating your own revision mind map now at home? You can create one for each module or subject you're revising, or each topic or theme. It's completely up to you. And if you can, it's great to be able to find a study buddy and swap your mind maps. So if you can decide on a topic together that you'd like to work on, then you each individually create a mind map and you could compare this. You could take a screenshot and send it over by email, or if you are used to using Teams or Zoom, then you can share your screen and you can look at each other's remotely. So that's the end of part 1. Thank you for listening.